we'll get started. Thanks everyone for coming. We just wanted to take a moment to kind of reflect on our major takeaways and think of a little bit of analysis from last night. So I think we should just start by introducing yourselves. My name is Shana Bender and I'm on the board at MapJ. Who wants to go next?
Brandon Irwin, Vice Chair of MapJ.
Alex Van Dyke, also on the board of MapJ.
Kevin Bryan, also on the board of MapJ and Manhattan Martin Luther King Committee.
Yeah. So just to kind of jump in a little bit, when we're looking at kind of outcomes in Riley County, what kind of surprises did we have thinking about how Riley County voted versus maybe how we voted on a national level and how we voted on a local level?
I don't see like a ton of surprises, especially like at the state and federal elections. Like it's just traditionally like a notoriously red and difficult state for Democrats and progressives to win elections. That being said, Biden won the county. Like there are like these Democratic kind of strongholds across the state, including Riley County, and then out in Kansas City, somewhat in Topeka and Wichita as well. Although I don't know if Biden won Wichita, but basically all Democrats won for federal seats. Democrats won across the board in Riley County. But then lost the state level. So not a big surprise there to me.
Looking at some of the statistics, I think there's an 86% Black turnout, which is very good. We've been missing the Hispanic and Latino very much so, because it just blows my mind that to consider the relations that we've had with Cuba, and Miami goes 30% Trump. Which is, I'm boggled because we don't have a foreign policy. We don't have anybody who's capable of putting a proper foreign policy in place. So we are missing the Hispanic vote here, also in Manhattan.
Kevin, I have a question for you. As someone who's been in the community for a long time, has the trend usually been that Riley County would vote in sort of for these blue seats on these national state levels compared to locally? Or is that something that's changing?
That's the problem. It stays the same. I think it's Manhappiness. So people don't want to buck the system. That's the big feeling. People, and you get that feeling all along. People just don't want to buck the system because it's not the way it is. That's not the way we do business here. It kind of reflects back to we've only had one Black city commissioner in 51 years.
So what are your impressions about the amount of people that took the time to vote for a local race, say our county commission or even some of our representative seats?
So turnout was a little bit better than usual. I mean, at the county level, between 2016 and 2020, we added around 3,000 additional registered voters. We don't know yet exactly how all those new voters voted. We don't have that data yet. All we have is like the outcomes, but eventually we'll get some more demographic data at the county level and party affiliation, those kinds of things. But typically, historically, it's the unaffiliated voters that how are they going to vote in these local elections that really decide them. At the state level, not a whole lot of surprises there either. Tom Hawk won a pretty tight race, and Dodson won an even tighter race over Cheryl Arthur. Dodson being the former city commissioner and mayor here in Manhattan. Also the commanding, officer over at Fort Riley for a number of years, and Cheryl Arthur kind of being the new kid on the block, so to speak. But what was really interesting in the commission, the Riley County Commission elections, was in District 3 and in District 2. I mean, the only seats that were open. I think they were actually like pretty interesting. So you look at District 3, and that was John Matta and Catherine Foti. And that was unusually tight for District 3. You know, the past two elections in District 3 have been won by over like 600 votes, I want to say. And Levi Smith and Ron Wells back in 2016, I think that was, you know, around 1,500, between 1,500 and 2,000 votes. John Matta won District 3 by 10 votes over Catherine Fogty. And so it's interesting. It's hard to really interpret like what's going on there. You know, I mean, I look at their campaigns, and certainly like neither one of their campaigns were as sort of what I would say like as robust as like a Fannie Fang campaign, but maybe it just doesn't need to be. But an unusually tight race over there in District 3.
I think the same can be said for Cheryl's. I was actually really surprised. I think 45% of the vote is the most that a Dim's gotten for that seat in at least, but going back to 2008, maybe even before then. So especially being the new kid on the block, like you said, I think Cheryl really performed well. And I think at least maybe maybe this shows the west side of town is sort of trending more Democrat, but just a little too slowly for this race.
Does anyone want to speak about sort of the impact of your votes on a local level and kind of what lessons we've learned from this, you know, this season and these races?
Yeah, I think yeah, sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead. Negative ads work. That's, you know, that's all I can say is I've saw Cheryl Arthur's ads constantly on kept being projected, which was really good. And it wasn't and she actually, you know, pointed out some of the stuff that's glaringly obvious. And when you start talking about good stuff, we don't get any attention. We saw that when we did the transfer, when we went to the county commission about transparency. I think it's just hard to believe that negative ads work because it's the last thing you're going to remember. Because you know, you figure your whole day is going to be you know, your whole day spent in a virus environment, and you're multitasked out the, you know, definitely there's something that's going to stick in your head, and it's something negative.
Yeah, it's hard to. On the other hand, though, you know, you look at the District 2, you know, race between McKinley and Fang, and you know, you end up wondering, you know, does campaigning even make a difference, right? Because so first of all, McKinley won by about 1,200 votes. McKinley being the former, or I suppose current, Riley City Commissioner up in the north part of Riley County. Fannie being, you know, co-owner of the Asian Market down in the city of Manhattan. And Fannie Fang, according to the finance report, the campaign finance reports, you know, she raised around $14,000, and it's actually more than that, just because I'm more familiar with her campaign. She raised 9 times as much money as McKinley in the last reporting cycle, and spent, you know, most of that. And you know, social media ads, radio ads, you know, tons of door knocking, canvassing, lit dropping, and all these things. And it's like, and she lost by 1,200 votes, you know? And so I'm, you know, kind of left here wondering, and this is another reason why I think this is a really interesting race, because like you know, what makes a difference, you know, in these campaigns, and depending on who you ask, like nothing really matters. And I think this would kind of support that, but other people will say, yes, it's, you know, it's signs, it's social media ads, it's canvassing, it's door knocking, which, you know, I think during this pandemic was, you know, significantly kind of muted across campaigns. Yeah, there were a lot of candidates going out, knocking on doors and talking to people, at least the best they could. The extent to that, I'm not entirely sure, but you know, this race in District 2 is really interesting, kind of surprising. It's like, well, what does it mean? Like, does campaigning even make a difference here? I don't know. You know, the unit of analysis is the campaign, so it's just kind of like, can we do, what did we do in 2016? What did we do in 2020? What do we do in 2024? And like, before you can actually make some good conclusions about that, you gotta, live for 200 years. So
Well,
who knows?
and to add to that too, what are we doing now between now and the next race, right? So when we think about voting day, right, is this one piece of the civic responsibility. And, MapJ, we always talk about kind of the cycle of our civic responsibility, and voting is just one piece of that. So where do we put our energy moving forward in kind of prepping our community or thinking about our community and moving toward change and progress on the issues that affect us the most?
One thing that's interesting to me about some of these races too is that on policy and issues, like there's not a ton of differentiation between like these candidates. So McKinley and Fanny were nearly identical, and especially if you're like reading the Manhattan Mercury or something, where they they'll ask questions about like the sales tax, where I know that there are some differences there. Don't get me wrong. But the real sort of distinguishing factors, I think, come out of events in forums like the People's Forum that MapJ organized and hosted for the past couple of years. The first one being last year in the city commission election, and of course this one being the county commission election. And there you really start to see some differentiation there. What's interesting this year about these candidates is that if you look at how they respond to those, again, there's some differentiation, but you go on to like their websites or just listen to them speak at, different, forums and things. And I'm always left wondering, like, well, what do you stand for, right? Like what policies and issues are you going to be a champion for? Because it's one thing to be asked a question about, well, how do you feel about this, right? And that question or this coming from the newspaper editor or a particular organization, and not actually coming from voters or other people, so they can just kind of react to things. They don't actually have to stand for something or commit to like actually fighting and being a champion for something. And so I'm left at the end of this election kind of really wondering, like, what MATA stands for in particular. Now McKinley, he's been a champion for the EMS station up in Riley County. MATA, I'm not so sure. Like I've gotten a lot of opinions from him on like kinds of aspirational things, and he's very much like a managerial kind of commissioner, it seems to me. And so I'm going to be really curious to see, how these two commissioners, what they're actually going to be fighting for. And number two, how they're going to respond to citizen organizations like ours, like MapJ, when we come to them with the issues that, people have been asking about in the People's Forum and outside of the People's Forum, whether that's, revising the law board, or moving county commission meetings up north once a month, county administrator, you name it. And so that I think has yet to be seen there.
So I do think there's a piece in which we can't forget, which is that you may not have liked the result or gotten what you wanted from this election, but it's not time to turn off. Or even if you did like the results, thinking about kind of where you're going with that is, what is your issue, right? So to kind of build on that question, the question isn't how do you feel about it, but what are you going to do about it, right? And so the value of seeing that in this moment, this is just like the start, and then we as a collective have to think about how are we going to organize ourselves to still work towards the things we want, even if our leaders don't match the values or the agendas that we have.
I think that's a big thing that we need to focus on. I'm going to close with this because I have to go pick up my girls from daycare, and they're about the only joy I've got today. So I'm going, but I'll just leave with, I think we really need to focus, like you said, between now and then, what we can do to figure out what the city or the county or the district wants. I don't know if that's door knocking and polling. I don't know what it looks like, but for the last two elections, District 67's seat were kind of last minute on the dim side between me and 18 and Cheryl this year. And it's just kind of, it's really hard to plan a campaign in 6 months while also trying to run it. And so if we can really get a better ground game and better understanding of what our community wants, I think those will be really important for us moving forward to the next election cycle.
So in just keeping in line with the joy that you have, what are the things you're doing to take care of yourself over the next few days as we kind of look forward to the future?
Well, still watching the polls for the national level.
That's giving you joy right now?
No, but I have to do it. As far as actually giving me joy, yeah, spending time with my family. I'm seeing my sister here this coming weekend, and that'll be nice. Hopefully, just kind of unplugging a little bit and then refreshing some batteries.
That's good. Yeah, refreshing the batteries for sure. Hopefully get some more solar power out of the last couple of, we've had great weather, so.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. If it was rain, I think it would be probably,
I
it'd probably be
feel
way too gloomy for me.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to take a look at what machines that we have that are working in this town, because there are obviously organizations and institutions behind some of these candidates, and we don't know what they are. We don't know what the influence is of outside groups like Americans for Prosperity or all these other little tiny groups that pop up. But to see what their, what their machine, how the machine is oiled, and I guess we probably need to copy it. It's kind of interesting that we've had Chris Kobach, Steve Watkins, and Roger Marshall. All three of them have had encounters with violations of law, but it's been accepted. It's just hard to fathom. And then we are a shining example of brownback economics, which is being passed on to the nation. And that was never mentioned. So I think we lost a lot of. There are a lot of people affiliated with different movements, and they're counterproductive to what we want as a community. So just looking to see how those machines are oiled and figuring out how we either get them to come to the table or we copy them.
Thank you for that kind of final analysis. All right, well, I think I'm gonna spend some time outdoors today, get some vitamin D, and just take a lot of deep breaths today. Thank you guys for coming on and participating.
Good seeing you.
Have a good day.
All right, you guys take care.